and welcome to this week's episode of Did Shakespeare. My name is Cassidy Cash. It seems that as long as people have had teeth, they've been trying to figure out how to keep them clean, probably because eating leaves food in your mouth and ugh. So you want to get that out. Plus, everyone deals with bad breath. But over the years, the technology for exactly what they use to keep their mouth and teeth clean has changed. The Egyptians and the ancient Romans, the Grecians, they all had different methods of keeping their teeth clean. So, what we do know is that oral hygiene existed for William Shakespeare, but what did he use exactly? To find out, this week we're asking, did Shakespeare use a toothbrush? The first toothbrush with bristles was invented in China and made of animal bone and hog's hair. The bristles were very, very hard. And the first toothbrush that we think of today with the long handle with the bristles on it was actually invented in England, but not until well after William Shakespeare's life. It came about in 1780 with a man named William Addis, who invented the toothbrush while he was in prison. And he took a piece of animal bone, drilled holes in one end of it, and strung bristles through it, and then glued them to the back so they would stay. It's really not that different from the long-handled toothbrush we use today to keep our teeth clean. Now, that's a long jump between China and the 18th century prison where William Addis is stringing this together in his cell. So, what happened in between? So, the toothbrush in China that was made up of bristles and had like the right angle to it where you could hold it and brush it in your mouth, that came about in about 1498. So, about a century before Shakespeare. And the toothbrush with bristles, but looks more like a paintbrush, happened in Spain and France around 1590. During the 17th and 18th centuries, people in Europe were using these kinds of toothbrushes, and they even had super fancy ones that were covered in silver and gold, and they were mainly used by the most wealthy people. And in France in the 18th century, now that's after Shakespeare, but he actually warned against using the horsehair brush and thought that could cause damage to the teeth. So we can see from the 18th century dentists' advice, it seems like people were still looking for 4 out of 5 dentists recommend such and forth a practice. And we can tell from what 4 out of 5 dentists recommended in the 18th century that the entire idea of a handle with bristles on it to clean your teeth, whether it was shaped like a paintbrush or a bristled brush we think of today, was not entirely popular in Shakespeare's lifetime. So, would Shakespeare have used a toothbrush? It's not looking likely. Probably not. They were there and they were in existence, but when they were owned, they were largely luxury items or a display of wealth, as opposed to something people used functionally. So, what would Shakespeare have used? Well, I came up with a few options. The first one is probably the most hilarious, and it is sugar polishing paste. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Sugar was a new thing for Shakespeare's lifetime. People had discovered it and they brought it to England, and everyone thought it was amazing, but it was really expensive. So only the upper echelons of society had this. And when they had it in abundance because it was a way to show off that not only could they afford it, but they could afford enough to pass it out to all of their people. And so they were using it for everything. They would make it in their food, and they even used it to try and clean their teeth. And that meant, as you may have already guessed, they made a paste out of granulated sugar, and they would slather it all over their teeth as a way to clean it. This did not go well, as you might imagine. Smearing candy paste all over your teeth causes exactly what dentists today tell you sugar will do to your teeth, and it will turn your teeth black and they rot out of your head. This actually happened for Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth was such a trendsetter, however, that when her teeth did turn black and start rotting out of her head in her 50s, it was such a trend that women whose teeth were not rotting out of their head would actually take soot or anything else they could find to turn their teeth black and stain their own teeth to look black because they wanted to look like the queen. The next option William Shakespeare had for keeping his teeth clean is called a chew stick. A chew stick is also what it sounds like, in that you take a young twig or a branch or a piece of a tree and you put it in your mouth and you chew on it. It works a lot like what chewing gum can do today, in that the act of chewing does clean your teeth somewhat. In China, they would actually add oils to the branches in order to freshen your breath while you were cleaning with it. I couldn't find a definitive source about whether or not the ones in England were treated with peppermint oil to make them also breath fresheners. But in England for Shakespeare's lifetime, the exploration to India with the establishment of the East India Trading Company brought European colonists into contact with a particular kind of chew stick called neem. Neem was notable to the Indian farmers because plagues of locusts would wreak havoc on the land and leave the neem plant. So they could tell that the neem plant had some kind of insecticidal properties, which is like a precursor to antimicrobial. This wouldn't be figured out totally in terms of why was this plant useful until the 1960s, if you can believe that. But during Shakespeare's lifetime, this particular plant was a popular kind of chew stick for this reason. It was used medicinally in the 16th century to both clean teeth as well as a way to treat toothache. The third way I found that William Shakespeare could have used to clean his teeth is just using his finger. Now, as nasty as this may sound today, it was not uncommon during Shakespeare's lifetime for someone to simply use their finger to get the food out of their mouth and to scrape off whatever was bothering them inside there to remove debris. And while it's not incredibly effective, it did at least clean on a basic level. The last method that I found William Shakespeare could have used to clean his teeth is the one that I think is probably the most likely contender for what William Shakespeare would have used to clean his own teeth. Now, there's plenty of evidence to suggest oral hygiene wasn't a concern at all for Shakespeare or many like him during Tudor England. So I'm not saying that I know Shakespeare cleaned his teeth, but this is the one I think would make the most sense if I had to choose one. This method is using either a cloth or a sponge to scrub your teeth. Same way that you might clean your body or wash off a pot or a pan, you just take a piece of cloth and you scrub with it. It was some kind of piece of linen, and you could stick it in your mouth to rub off the gunk or remove food and freshen breath. So it seems like dirty streets and the lack of bathing, oral hygiene was also an area where people struggled with dirty teeth and nasty breath, but it didn't stop them from writing beautiful sonnets. Those are all the ways that I found to clean teeth during Shakespeare's lifetime. Do you know about more? What do you think was the most likely method Shakespeare would have used to clean his teeth? Share your comments with me in the comments below. If you like this video and you like learning about William Shakespeare, please hit like and subscribe. And on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell. YouTube will send you a notification when we put a new episode up. Now, if you'd like these episodes delivered to you directly in your inbox, along with a mountain of history where you can explore further, please consider signing up for the newsletter. You can do that and find more history on brushing your teeth in 16th century England in the full show notes for today's episode at cassidycash.com/toothbrush. That's it for this week. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.